Welcome to the session 16 of Operating System and Linux. I'm Manibhushan D'Souza, and today's session we are going to deal with process synchronization. We are going to learn about the cooperative processes. Then we will look at one of the producer-consumer problem. Then we will learn about critical problem and the algorithms that are associated with the critical problems. In particular, we are going to look at the solutions for two processes and then extend it for n processes. As we are all familiar with the cooperative process, so what are cooperative processes? Okay, so cooperative processes are those that are either affected or they affect the other processes which are executing on the system. So when there are more than one process running on the system, a cooperative process may interact with the other process, thereby affecting its execution, or some other process which are executing may interact with the current process and then it may affect its execution. How do they achieve this one? We have already seen in the previous session. One of the way to achieve this is by sharing some memory space so that the two processes can write onto the same shared memory space which can be used. Also, it is possible to interact with the other processes using the files. We can share a common file among the two processes. So one can write onto the file, the other can read from the file. Okay. How do we achieve this kind of cooperation? Is we are already familiar. We can use the threads or lightweight processes. Now there is some problem when we have shared space or a shared memory, and that is whenever we share a data with the two processors, it always lead to consistency unless and otherwise we are a bit careful about how the updation are carried out. So there must be a orderly execution of the cooperative process so that when one of them is updating, the others should not go and read or manipulate the data unless the first process has completed. In other words, when we have a shared data, only one of the process must be allowed to interact with them. Only once it finishes its work, the others are supposed to either read or access the shared data. Now let's look at the solution for the producer-consumer problem that we have studied in the previous session. So what is this producer-consumer problem? So in the producer-consumer problem, we have a producer, one process called as a producer, and we have one other process called as a consumer. So we have a producer which produces an item, and we have a consumer that consumes the item. The produced item are placed in a bounded buffer. What is the meaning of saying bounded buffer? So a bounded buffer is a place or is a shared memory that has a restriction on the data. So you can have the items in the bounded buffer. However, you must understand one important thing. There is a limit as to how many items can be placed on it. Suppose if the size of this buffer is n, then only n items can be placed by the producer. And how does the process work? So producer produces an item and places in the buffer. The consumer consumes the item. So if the producer has not produced any item, consumer has to wait until the producer produces an item. In the same way, if the producer has completed, or he has filled, the process has filled all the available space in the buffer. So that means it has placed n items. Then the producer has to wait until one of the item is consumed by the consumer. Now let's assume that there is a size for the buffer. So it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be anything. So let's assume that the buffer has a maximum size. So that is in this case it is taken as 10. That means only 10 items can be placed in the buffer. Let's assume that the producer is producing one item. And what is this item? Whether it is a car, whether it is a bus, whether it is a chocolate, we will not bother about it. So it's going to produce a item. That's what is important to us. It produces one item. That's it. Okay. So, and the items are placed in the buffer. So that is been placed over here. So the producer produces an item and places it in the buffer. There are two pointers that are required, because the producer must know which is the next position where the item has to be placed. So when the producer produces an item, it must know which is the next position from where the item has to be placed. So whether it is here, whether it is there, so that is indicated by the in pointer. In the same way, consumer is going to consume the item. So consumer must know which is the item to be removed from the buffer. So that is the out. And we know that we must know how many items are there in the buffer. That is given by the counter. So counter indicates how many items are there in the buffer. So when the counter is equal to 10, so when this value is equal to 10, that means the buffer is full and the producer has to wait. Now very important thing over here is that suppose if you have a buffer and the producer produces a item, next item, next item. So as the items are produced, the in will change. So initially when the first item is produced, in becomes 1, second item is produced, in becomes 2, and in becomes 3, and so on. So if you start from the 0th location, so that means if you are using arrays, you know very well, array index will start from the zeros. So this is going to be the 0th index. I'm talking about the index, not the value here. Index is 0, then the index is 1, then the index is 2, and so on. Finally index will be 9, because there are 10 items will be there. So let's assume that the producer has produced 10 items and the buffer is full. Now a consumer consumes the item. Consumer will not consume the last item, consumer will consume the first item. So your in pointer, that's a pointer that points to the location, that's going to point here, indicating that the buffer is full. Now if an item is removed from the buffer, then this pointer has to come back to this location. So it is like a circular queue. So you have studied about data structures. So it is a circular queue. So the in pointer will keep on increasing. When it reaches to the last one, it again retraces back from the 0. The same thing is true even for the out. So out will keep on consuming the item. So once it reaches to the end, the last one, it again retraces its path back to the starting one. So it is a circular queue. You must understand that. The counter, you know very well, is the value. So when the first item is added, the counter will be 1 item, and if it is removed, it becomes 0. And if 10 items are added, then the counter value will become 10. So it is simple as that. So we don't have any issues with them. So let's look at how the producer will work. So what is the work of the producer? Let's look at that in the diagram. So we have a producer. Let's put the as a producer, and we have a buffer, and the producer is supposed to put an item in the buffer. What's the first thing that producer must do? So producer must check whether the buffer is full or not. Is there a space where I can place the produced item? So that's what the producer is doing. So if the counter is equal to the size of the buffer, so what is the meaning of it? There are already n number of items. In this case, buffer size was 10. That means the buffer is full. If the buffer is full, look at this particular statement over here. This is a while loop, and this while loop, you notice that it is not doing anything. So it is writing a while loop like this. You have studied about a C program. A while true, let's assume that while true, and if you put like this, what's going to happen? This while loop will continue forever and ever and ever and ever. So it is a dummy while loop. The same thing is done over here. If the while is true, this will keep on executing again and again and again until the counter value changes. When will the counter value change? The counter value will change if one of the item is pulled out. So in other words, if one of the item is consumed by the consumer, then the counter value will change and counter value becomes 9. When the counter value becomes 9, you know very well, when the counter value is 9, so this thing will change. So counter is not equal to buffer. In that case, the control will go to the next one. So in the next one, what is going to happen? So what is that we are supposed to do? If the buffer is full, then the producer has to wait, and that is what is mentioned over here. If the buffer is full, then the producer is going to wait. Otherwise, if the buffer is not so this is not the one. If the buffer is not full, in that case, what you are supposed to do? If this is the position up to which the buffer is full, then what must be done? Then the producer has to put a item in the location pointed by the in. So wherever in is pointing, so in is pointing to the location where the next produced item will be inserted. So where the next item will come, that is marked by the in pointer. So what the producer will do? Producer will produce an item and it is going to place the item here. And what will happen to the in pointer? Once this item has been placed, the in pointer will move to the next location. In pointer will go to the next location, and the producer will produce one item and is going to place it here. Buffer of in is equal to the next item produced, and it goes on and on and on until it reaches the last place. Once it reaches the last place, it has to retrace back. How do you do that thing? Hope you are all familiar with the data structures, wherein you have studied the circular queue, wherein the how to bring the pointer back to the first one is you go for modulo division by the size of it. So you know very well, hope you have understood that. Now whenever an item is produced, the counter has to be increased. So how does this particular code works? First, at this point, the producer, see there is a producer here which is producing an item. So producer will look at the buffer. So producer will look at the buffer. If the buffer is not full, so if there is any place, the producer will produce an item and will place an item wherever the pointer is pointing, that is wherever the in pointer is pointing. And then what the producer will do, it will increment. So once it is done, it will increment the pointer to point to the next available location. Apart from that, the counter value is increased to make it reflect that the new item has been added. Let's look at the consumer. What does the consumer will do? So let's look at the consumer point of view. So we have the buffer here, and we have a consumer here who wants to consume the produced item. So what does the consumer must do? Consumer must first check whether the buffer is empty. If the buffer is empty, consumer has to wait until an item is added to the buffer. So how does the consumer will do it? So consumer will check how many items are there, count of items. If the count of item is 0, that means the item counter is 0, then you run a dummy loop without doing anything. You run a dummy loop forever. So once an item is produced, this counter value will change and the while loop will break and the counter will come to the next one. Wherever out is pointing, I told you there are two pointers are there. One is the in pointer, other one is the out pointer. In pointer is going to point to a location where the next item has to be placed. Out pointer is going to point to a location where the next item has to be consumed, so that it's going to give you that one. So it's going to go to the out pointer, and wherever that out pointer is pointing, so wherever this out pointer is pointing, it's going to consume that item. And what is the next thing it's going to do? It will point the pointer to the next location from which the item has to be consumed. In other words, the pointer will be incremented to the next location. Definitely one item has been consumed, so the counter has to be decreased. So this is how the bounded buffer problem works. So now let's concentrate on the counters. So there are two counters are there here. Which are those two counters? One is this counter plus plus, which is going to be incremented whenever new item has been added. So whenever a new item has been added, the counter gets incremented. What about the other counter? Other counter, you have it here, that is whenever a item is consumed, the counter pointer gets decreased. How does this thing will work? So let's look at the actual coding, how it's going to go. Remember, we know very well everything is going to run inside the CPU. When I say CPU, I'm talking about the microprocessor. Every calculation is done inside the microprocessor. And inside the microprocessor, you have something called as a register, a temporary memory that the microprocessor uses. It's a memory that is used directly by the microprocessor. It is not available to the us. So how does the program works? So your counter, whatever you are saying, that counter that you just said, which is incremented or decremented or whatever it is, this counter is a location inside a RAM. So inside the RAM, you have one location that is named as counter. So how does the microprocessor will work? It will take the value, whatever value it is. Let's assume that this value is 4 or 5 or whatever it is. It reads this value, original value. It can be 0 if the no items are there. If 4 items are there, it is going to be 4. So it's going to read that value into the counter. So it's going to get that value into that register first. So it gets it here into the register. Then it will do some add operation, ADD operation or something. It's going to increment this value. So it's going to change this value, and register value is equal to register plus 1. So this statement, it's going to make the changes. This is, I'm just writing it here because it has made changes. So this value, it's going to increment it. Finally, it's going to transfer that value into the counter. So finally, it's going to write it back to the counter, so that this value in the counter, now it will be shown as 5. So this is how it works. Okay. Same thing is going to work with the decrement. How does the decrement will work? If you look at the code for decrement, it's going to be the same old thing. So you first take the value from the RAM in. So you take the value from the RAM into the register, decrease the value, and then write it back to the RAM. So this is how it works. Now there is going to be a problem. Now this whole thing has to be done as a single unit. if it is when if it is done, if there is a value is if these two statements are performed in unsynchronized manner, then we will end up in trouble. So in other words, these two operations must be performed in completion without a disturbance. What is the meaning of it is when you are incrementing the counter, until the counter is incremented, others are not supposed to read the value. So the counter is available as a shared data between the two processors. So until the counter value changes from 4 to 5, until the new value appears over here, others are not supposed to read it. In the same way, if you are decrementing it, until the whole decrement take place, the others are not supposed to, other process. When I say others, there you know very well, we have a cooperative process. So there is a producer, there is a consumer. So if the consumer is increasing one value from 4 to 5, until the value is changed to 5, the consumer is not supposed to read it. In the same way, if the consumer is decreasing the value from 5 to 4, the producer is not supposed to read the value until the value changes from 4 to 5 or from 5 to 4 or whatever it is. Until the whole operation is performed, the others are not supposed to disturb it. So this is called as atomic operation. So what is atomic operation? Atomic operation means the operation that completes in its entirety without the interruption. So if it is starting, it should go for the completion. Others should not disturb the process in between. Now let's look at what happens if the others disturb it. So let's assume that you have the counter value. I'm going to just write the counter value here. So I have this counter value. So here counter value. Let's assume that counter value is 5. And I am going to take two processes here. One is the producer and the other processor is the consumer. So what happens if they don't synchronize their activity? What is going to happen? Now let's assume that the producer has produced a item. So let's start with that. So if the producer has produced an item and if the producer has placed that item in the buffer, then the counter has to be incremented. So what the producer will do? Producer will look at this value. So he will look, the producer will look at this value and the producer is going to read the value. Okay, so producer is going to say that this value is 5. So that is what the producer is doing. So here if you notice at this location, so producer will read the value inside its register. So it reads it as 5 and it is going to increment the value of 5 as a 6 because one item has been produced and it is placed. So producer will increment it and the producer is going to say that this value is 6. But at the same time, what the consumer will do? Consumer is also running parallelly. Remember, it's a cooperative process. Consumer also will look at it. Okay, 5 items are being produced. Why can't I consume one? So consumer will go here. And what the consumer will do? It will read. Okay, 5 items are being produced by the producer. A lot of items are there, I can consume it. So the consumer will come and it will read the value as 5 because see producer is producing, two are running parallelly. Remember you have this auto tracks wherein two cars are moving parallelly, so both are moving parallelly. One has read 5 and it is trying to increment it. The other one is also reading it 5 and it is trying to decrement it. So what the consumer will do, okay, I have consumed one item. Let me change the counter value and let me say the next value is 4. Now what happens? One has increased it to 6, the other one has decreased it to 4. Now what happens? If the producer writes it back, the producer will write it and say that this is 6. But after some time, if the consumer comes up and say, no, I have removed one item, so let me go and rewrite it. So consumer will go and write and say it's a 4. Now both are wrong. Why both are wrong? Why it is both are wrong? Initially 5 items were there. One item was produced, so total items were 6. One item got consumed, so 6 minus 5 is 5. So the actual value is 5. Initially 5 was there, 1 is produced and 1 is consumed. So they balance each other. 5 was there, 1 is produced, immediately 1 is consumed. So again 5. Produced and removed means the actual value remains 5. But what happens? Either you get the value as 6 or 4. When you get the value as 4, if the consumer goes and writes it at the end, it's going to be 4. Instead of that, if the consumer writes it first as 4, after that, after some time, the producer goes and say, no, I have produced one item, my count is 6, and if we make it 6, so it is going to become 6. In both the cases, whether it's 4 or 6, both are wrong because it is not the correct value. And this happens, why? Because you were not synchronizing it. You have not allowed the process to go in atomic manner. Okay, so if the producer and consumer attempt to update the buffer concurrently, their sequence may be interleaved. What is the meaning of saying interleaved? One is mixing with the other, and what will happen? The result will be wrong. So this is called as race condition. So what is the meaning of saying race condition? You know very well, when you were maybe now also, you have this tracks event, 100 meters, 200 meters and so on. So race. Everybody wants to run fast as possible and reach the destination. Okay. Same thing is true. There is a shared resource is there. Producer is there. Consumer is there. They are racing against each other to access that information or access that data. Okay, so what is a race condition? A race condition is a condition where several processes access and try to manipulate the shared data concurrently. And in this case, who is going to win the race? So in your tracks event, 100 meters or 200 meters, 400 meters, who is going to get the first prize? The person who came first will be the one who will be awarded. But in this case, who will be awarded? The person who is the laziest will be awarded. Why? The last update will be the one that will be highlighted. So remember that. If you go and update it first, then what happened? After some time, second person will come and update it. So your updation is gone. After that, third person will come and update. So second person update is gone. Fourth person will come. Third person update is gone. So whose update will be there? The one who came last will be the one that's going to win the race. So this is exactly opposite of how you look at the track event. Okay. So final value of the share depends upon the process that finishes the last is the one. Okay. So what must be done? So there the operating system must ensure that the updation occurs in a proper manner. So there is a kind of synchronization that happens between the two processes. If there is no synchronization, then what will happen is two coordinating processes will fight with each other and then destroy the entire data altogether. Okay, so the operating system must say that now this process will update it, all the others has to wait, and then it is okay, it's the next chance is yours, you go and update it, all the others has to wait, and so on and so forth. So it is kind of operating system must control who is which process is going to make the changes. So this place where a concurrent process accesses the shared resource, it is called as critical section. So in your code, the counter plus plus, the one that I have shown you there, which what is counter? Counter is a shared value between the producer and the consumer. So it's a shared data. Whenever a process goes and accesses the shared data, that code, whichever code you are writing in program, that is called as a critical section. So what must be done? So in the critical segment, that is a part of the code, only one process must be allowed to access the data. All the other excuse me, has to wait until the updation has occurred. Okay. So when you have a shared data, only one process goes and updates. Either it writes it to the file, writes it to a memory location, or does some updates. So when it is accessing the shared location, that is called as a critical section. That code is called as a critical section. So when one of the process is in critical section, no other process must be allowed to enter into their critical section. So when one process is executing its critical section, no other process is allowed to execute their critical section. So at a time, even though many processes are running, but at a time only one of them will perform the critical section. So what is this critical section? Critical section is that segment of the code which manipulates the shared resource. Okay, so it manipulates that shared resource. So this is called as mutual exclusion. Hope you studied something of statistics, wherein they say that if you toss a coin, either you get a head or you get a tail. If you get a head, the tail will not be shown. If you get the tail, the head will not be shown. In the same way, if there are two processors or 10 processor, one of the processors will go for the critical section, all the others will not go for the critical section. So either you are in the critical section or you are not in the critical section. If you are there in the critical section, others are not there in the critical section. If somebody else is in the critical section, you cannot enter the critical section. So this is how it really goes. Okay. So each process, before it enters into the critical section, must get the permission from the operating system saying that I want to perform the critical section. If the operating system says no, somebody else is already performing their critical section, then my process has to wait. So this code which makes the request or which takes a permission, that's called as an entry section. So before you enter, it's like if you have a ticket, you enter it. If you don't have a ticket, you wait until you get the ticket. So the same way, the process goes to the operating system and says, I want to go to a critical section. Then the operating system may say, okay, go ahead, go with the critical section. Or the operating system may say, no, wait, something else is being performed. I will tell you when you can go to the critical section. In that case, it has to wait. So before it enters, it has to make a permission, that is called as an entry section. Then it will perform all the critical section, updating the shared variable. Once it comes out, then it has to tell the operating system that I have completed it. Now either it can tell the operating system or it can tell all the others who are waiting to enter into the critical section that my part is over. Now one among you has to enter into the critical section. So there is an entry section wherein you get the permission. There is an exit section wherein you allow others to enter into it. So if you go quietly and do something in the critical section and come out, others are thinking that you are still there in the critical section. So you enter the critical section. When you come out, you tell the others. So once your critical section is over, once the process completes the critical section, it is called as a remainder section. So let's look at the code over here. So if this is the critical section, if this part is the critical section, so this part is the critical section, then before you enter into the critical section, you go to the entry section wherein you get the permission. So if you get the permission, you enter into the critical section. Once you come out, you are going to alert the others saying that I have come out of the critical section. That is called as exit section. Once you come out of it, you will perform the remainder section. Okay. So a process somehow must synchronize this action. So entering and exit, so that critical section is performed only by one. So in order for the critical section to be performed, or in order to solve this critical section problem, a solution must satisfy three different things. One is the mutual exclusion, which I have already told you. What is the mutual exclusion? If the process P is executing the critical section, no other processes will be allowed to enter into the critical section. At a time, only one of them will enter the critical section. So that's good as that. Next one, that's our first criteria or first requirement is there must be mutual exclusion. One will enter, others will wait. So that's mutual exclusion. In other words, exclude all the others, allow only one of them. Next one is the progress. Okay. So if there is nobody who is executing the critical section, so if somebody is executing the critical section, naturally you can't enter. So that's obvious. If nobody is there in the critical section and one of the process wants to enter, so what it must do? So you see nobody is there in the critical section. So can you jump into the critical section? The answer is no. Okay. Before you jump into the critical section, you ask all the others, okay, whether they want to enter into the critical section. So who can answer that? So you can go and yell at all the others, I am entering into the critical section, is there any objection? So somebody may say, no, I was waiting from that time, I want to enter. In that case, you give up. If nobody is responding, then well and good. But who can respond? The question is that. So can everybody say that, okay, go ahead with the critical section, we don't have any objection? The answer is not. Everybody is not allowed to do. Okay, only those code which are not in the remainder section can only participate in this decision. So what is the meaning of it is, so let's look at that one. You want to execute the critical section, so you come here to get the permission. Now, in order to get the permission, somebody has to say that I am not in the critical section. Suppose if there are only two processes, you go and you want to enter into the critical section. You ask the other, only assume that only two are there. You ask the other, do you want to enter into the critical section? So if the other person says, no, I don't want to enter critical section, then you enter into it. Okay. Now the question is, if the other, so you ask the question, if you look at this point, if the other is already here, so what is the meaning of it? Others have already performed their critical section. So this is the meaning. If the others are here means the other came here, took the permission, went to the critical section, completed the critical section, and the others are doing the remaining section, whatever that is. What is the meaning of saying remainder section? The section that has nothing to do with the shared data. They can do something on their own. They don't have to, every now and then they don't have to come to the shared memory. So if their others are already in the remainder section, don't ask the permission. They have completed their work. Okay. Only if you find many are here before to this one or in this section, okay, take the permission only at this. Don't take the permission of the processes which are at this location, because they have already completed the critical section. So that is called as a progress. So let's look at the progress. Okay, if no process is executing the critical section and some of the processes want to enter into the critical section, only those processes that are not executing the remainder section, remember that the last section, only those who are not executing that last section are allowed to make the decision. Others need not to do anything. However, this process cannot be postponed. Others have to tell whether you can enter or not, and it has to be done within a specific time. It is not you wait, you come tomorrow, or day after tomorrow. No. Okay, either you wait for some time or you go ahead with it. So there must be a progress. It is not like you come to the critical section and you are stuck. You can do anything. So that should not happen. Next one is the bounded waiting. So what is the meaning of saying bounded waiting is there is a bound on the number of times the other processes are allowed to enter a critical section after the progress has after a process has made a request to enter. So what is the meaning of that is, suppose you go and ask, okay, I want to enter into the critical section. So what the operating system may say, no, you don't go now, you wait, let the other person go. So you wait quietly. Okay, so that person, that process goes, does the work, comes out. And again you go and ask the operating system, can I enter the critical section? The operating system says no, you can't. Let this process go and complete it. So you wait again. That process goes, completes it and goes out. Again you go and ask the operating system, can I enter the critical section? So operating system say you wait, let him enter. So what you'll get furious. So in the same way, there is a bound on the number of times the other processes are allowed to enter. Once you made a request, there is a bound, there is a count. So you made a request, I want to enter into the critical section, and if the bound is 5, then 5 processes are allowed to enter the critical section. You made a request, 5 are allowed. 6th one is yours. So there is a bound. It is not unbounded waiting. So you simply can't wait. So there you will be told that maximum you may have to wait for 10 minutes or 10 processes to complete. Then onwards your number will come. Before that also it can come, but there is a bound. It is not indefinite. I don't know, you come tomorrow, day after tomorrow, not like that. 10, okay, you are there in the queue, 10 are there in front of you, let them complete and you will get it. So there is a bound. Okay, so let's look at how the process will go. So let's assume that you have 2 processes, Pi and Pj. So these I and j are given the number so that it is easier for to understand. For the operating system, the processes are always numbered from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So if you take the processor P as the first processor as 0, if this ID of this process is 0, then this process will be 1. Remember, the name Pi and Pj is given for me and for you to easily understand that, but it is either 0 or 1. Okay, so if the processor ID is 0, if it is P0, what is the ID of the other processor? It will be 1. Can I get the relationship between them? The answer is yes. So what is j? J is equal to 1 minus I. So what is I value is 0. So 1 minus 0 is 1. What is I? If I ask you what is I is equal to, so what is I? I is equal to j minus 1 minus j. So is it true? Yes. What is j value? J is 1 here. So 1 minus 0 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. Remember. So you can always get the other one. So what you have to do? If your ID is 0, only there are 2 processes are there. Remember that. Don't say okay, what will be the second processor? No, only 1 and 2. 2 processors are there. First processor is 0. Second processor ID is 1. How to get the ID of the other process? It is 1 minus the ID. So if the processor I has a value 0, what is the value of the other processor? It is 1 minus 0. So this is going to be j is 1. If the processor ID of j is 1, what is the processor ID of I? It is 1 minus the ID of this, that is 1 minus 1, which is 0. Okay. So that's the idea. Now there is something called as, there is a variable called as turn. Turn is whose turn is there. It is not turning it. Whose turn is that? If the turn value is equal to I, that means ith processor is allowed to execute the critical section. So whose turn is this? If the turn is j, jth processor is allowed to enter the critical section. If turn is k, kth processor will be allowed. Okay. So which processor is allowed to enter into it? Let's look at the first algorithm in this scenario. So what happens here is, let's assume that we have a variable turn which will decide whose turn is that. Initially the turn, remember this is shared among them, among the 2 processors. So initially turn is equal to 0. That means only one of the process. Suppose if ith Pi is 0, one of the processor, the process with the ID 0, processor ID 0 will be allowed to enter into the critical set. So how does this particular process will work? How does the program works? So let's assume that the process Pi wants to enter into the critical state. So remember there are 2 sections are there. One is the entry section, the other one is the exit session, and the remainder session will be there. In between, critical section will be there. So the processor PI will come to this while loop. So in this while loop, it just checks whether it is my turn. So process ID will come and check whether it is my turn. If it is my turn, then remember, if the turn is equal to I, then this condition will becomes false and it can enter into the critical section. If the turn is equal to I, it can enter it. Suppose if it is not the turn of this processor. So if turn is not equal to, suppose if the turn is J. So in that case, what will happen? If the turn is J is not equal to I. In that case, what happens? Look at here, there is a semicolon. Very, very important in the examination. You have to write the semicolon. Don't think that this is the while loop. This is not the while loop. The while loop is actually here. It is a single line while loop. It just goes here and so on, so forth. It's just a dummy while loop. So what happens if the processor is if the turn value is J, that means jth processor is allowed to enter into critical state, but the ith processor comes here and then say, okay, I want to enter. So what this for loop will do, until the turn becomes I, now it is J, until the turn becomes I, this will infinitely goes in a circle. So this while loop will go on and on and on and on. Okay, you cannot enter into, in other words, you cannot enter the critical section. When can you enter the critical section? When this turn value becomes I, when this turn value becomes I, turn is equal to I is equal to I not equal to I, this condition becomes false, then you enter into the critical section. Once you come out of the critical section, what are the process has to do? It has to allow the other process to run. So it will set the turn as J. So my turn is over, it's going to set the, that's the end section, the critical section. So it's going to set the value of J and you perform the remainder session. So this is how it allows the mutual exclusion. So what happens when the processor is when jth processor is entering, if a turn is equal to J, I is not allowed to exit. So I will not be allowed to go. I will just rotate here only, is not allowed to enter into the critical section. So it's called as mutual exclusion. When one is going, the other is not working. Okay. So this process will ensure that only one processor is entering the critical section. Okay. However, this process does not satisfy the progress. I told you there must be continuation 1. Okay. What is the problem? Why it is progress is not allowed? So let's look at this one. So if the turn value is 0, that is the 0th process is supposed to run, and P1 is already there in the P1 wants to enter into the critical section. Okay. So P1 cannot enter until P0 goes and changes the value. Remember, so if you notice over here, if you look at here, the I value, I goes here, suppose I enters into, then I will change the value of a turn to say that let J continue. So I enter, okay, once I come out of the critical section, I allow the others to enter. If I don't allow, what will happen? Others can't enter at all. So there is no progress. So suppose if I'm in the, I just forgot, and if I'm in the remainder section, others will not be able to enter because only I can enter. Because turn is I. Suppose if turn is Mr. X, only Mr. X can enter. After Mr. X has completed, he must say Mr. Y will complete. So it is the next one has to be done. Suppose if that is not done, what will happen is, if the turn is 0 and if the process 1 is trying to enter, the turn 0 has to be changed to 0. Who is going to do that? It's only the 0th process with the ID 0 will do it. If it is not done that, the other process cannot continue. Okay. What is the problem with this is this particular algorithm is only interested in mutual exclusion. It does not have the information about who has completed, whether I has completed or J has completed. It is not doing it. It is simply saying that okay, one has completed, the other will come, other has completed, the first one will come. So it will just make the mutual exclusion. So that's not the thing that we wanted. So how to upgrade it? So the upgradation can be done using one other option, and that is, in this case we will not take a integer variable, but we will take a flag, a boolean flag that is initially set to false, and if the flag is set to true, then that process will continue. So for example, if the flag of I, if for the ith process, if the flag is true, remember it's a boolean value, it is not 0 1, it is boolean. So if the flag is flag of I is 0, then ith processor can enter, the jth processor cannot enter. So let's look at how this particular uh, algorithm will work. So instead of turn, we have the array now. With that array, there are two values are there. So for processor I, you have one value. So for I, you have one value. For J, you have other value. So you have two values here. For I and J, you have the value. If I value is true, then I can enter. If J value is true, then J can enter. So let's look at how this particular algorithm works. Initially, both of them are made to false. So that means initially both of them can't enter. Okay, so how does then critical section will work? So let's assume that I want to go into the critical section. So I will come here and it will set its flag, ith flag, and it's going to say that I want to enter into critical section by making this a flag of I. So this is flag of I is equal to true. So it goes and says, okay, I want to enter into critical section. Can it enter the critical section? The answer is no. So it has said, it is like my intention. My intention is I want to enter into the critical section, but doesn't mean that I can go into the critical section. Intention is there, but not allowed. So what's the next thing the ith processor will do? It will go and check whether the J is also interested in that. So I want to, so I am not greedy. So I say I have an intention of entering into the critical section, but I will go and check the Jth processor to find out whether J is interested in the critical section. If it is J is interested in the critical section, that means flag of J is, if it is equal to true, then what happens? So remember, this is a dummy loop. Again, same thing. I is stuck here. So I will keep on and on and on and on and on and on and on until the J becomes a false. So until J becomes false, the I cannot enter into the critical section. So even though I has set the flags to true, I will wait until J changes its state as false. Once J makes the state as false, this while loop is broken. The I can enter into the critical loop. Once I has completed its work, so very important, once I completes its work, so it is true now, it is doing all its critical section. Once it has completed critical section, it just says, okay, my work is over. I am not interested in the critical section because I am in the remainder section. Again, this solution will also give you mutual exclusion, but it will not give you the progress. Again, the same problem. Okay, so even though this algorithm sets the value to 0, the true for one of them, and the one goes and checks whether other is interested. If so, it waits for the other. Everything is good, but it will not set the critical value. Okay, so what is the problem? Why it is not able to set the progress? What is the problem? There is a chance that both of them will end up in trouble. Okay, what is that? Okay, so let's look at the scenario. Okay, at a given instance of time, let me go here and let me explain it. What is going to happen? So I will come back to that point slightly later. So let's assume that this is the process I, this is the process I, and this is the process J. This is the process J. The I says I am interested. Okay. Same time, at the same instant, J goes and says I am also interested. In that case, what's going to happen? So J goes and say I am also interested. Both are true. So I comes here. Let's assume that this is a blue color is I. So I comes here. I am interested. Yes. J comes here. I am interested. I goes to this location and find that J is interested. So what will happen? I will get stuck in this location. Now J comes here, sets the value true. Let's say J set the value, already set the value. J comes here and checks, okay, I is interested in. So I am a good person. So I am supposed to allow the I to continue. So let me wait until I declares it to be false. So both are true. Both are assuming that so both are good. So if you have only good people on earth, this is going to happen. So everybody is good. So the first process says let the J will continue. The second process let I continue. The first one say no, you continue. The J will say no, you continue. Both are saying others you continue. Both are not doing anything. So there is no progress in that case. So that is what I have shown over here. So this will stop the from the process, both the process from entering the critical section. So what's the other solution? Solution is combine both of them together. That is, in the first one you had the turn, second one you had the flag. So combine both of them, turn and flag together to make the things work. So in this case, this is the third algorithm for two process solution. So let's look at how it goes. So you have the same flag is there, you have turn is there. Initially both the flags are set to false, that means both are not interested. Okay, one of them maybe say that it is your turn. So turn is when I complete, it is your turn. When you complete, it is my turn. So you know this table tennis you have seen, or the racket badminton, or badminton itself. You hit it, the ball is on their other's court. It is their turn. They hit it back. It is your turn. So it is like that. So whether you are interested or not, that's a different thing. Okay, so whose turn is that? That is decided. So turn may be 0 or 1, but both are not interested. Initially, both are not interested. But it is my turn. It is my turn, but I am not interested. So that is, it can happen, is it not? Okay, so let's look at how the process PI will work in this case. Okay, so you have the process PI. So initially, remember both the flags are false. Initially, both the flags are false. Process 0 and 1, both the processes are flags. So process says I am interested. Okay, so process I says I am interested. How does it say? Okay, I said flag of I is true. That means I is interested in entering. But see, again, good process, but it says let the turn be of J. Let J complete. I am interested. Let J complete. Then I will go and do it. So it says it is not my turn. It is not my turn. So it is Jth turn. Even though I am interested, it is Jth turn. So good, is it not? I am interested, but let allow J to continue. But the question is J interested? If J is interested, well and good. If J is not interested, J will say that no, I am not interested. Even though it is my turn, I am not interested. You go do whatever you want in the critical section. J may say that. Suppose if J says no, I am interested. Yes, it is my turn. I am interested. So what J will do? J will continue, and what will happen to I? So J is interested. So look at here. J is interested. Flag is true. And the turn already you have set. You gave the range to J. So the turn is J, and J is interested. what will happen? Remember, again, this is a dummy loop. Let me show you. So your I is stuck here, so it is not allowed to enter into the critical loop. So it will keep on looping here only. It is not allowed to enter into the critical section. Suppose if the J says that it is not my turn or not interested, then I can enter into the critical section. Once I completes the critical section, it says whether it is my turn or others turn, I am not interested. My part is over. I have done whatever I wanted to do with the critical section, and it goes. So this solves all the problems. Okay, so this is what happens. The process I first enters, it sets the flag to true, and it sets the turn to the others, so that the others continue. Okay, what will happen if both of them say both of them are interested? So remember, this fully blocking will not take place in this case. So let's assume by this is going to give you the progress. So let's assume that this is the flag of I, this is the flag of J. Let me draw that. This is the flag of J. So J. So I is interested, J is interested at the same time. So I comes here, and what I will do? I will give the control to the J. Yes, J will continue working because you gave it to J. Now what if J comes here and set the value of I? If the when remember, when I comes, I gives it to J. When the J comes, J will give it for the J comes, J will give it to I. Okay, so if the J gives it to I and say it is, one of them will continue. Remember, when you get to the, it is like when you get the, if you are standing in the signal, traffic signal, when the light becomes green, you just go. You one side gave you the signal, you won't say okay you go, I will not. You got the green signal, you are moving, that's all. Okay, but you may give it to others, that's the thing. Once you get the green signal, you go. So this will not create the problem of progress. Problem will not be there, so it continues without this problem. So this two process solution, that's algorithm 3, is mutual exclusion. It is it satisfies the progress as well as it is bounded wait. So what is the meaning of that? You will not wait for an indefinite time. You are given a chance after the you make a request. Okay, now that's true for two processes, but I told you that in an operating system more than two processes can be there. So you can have number of processes. So if there are multiple processes, that is n processes are there, how do you go for that? For that we have a solution from the bakery algorithm. Now this bakery algorithm, why it is called as a bakery algorithm is it is derived from the bakeries. So here in India we don't go to the bakery unless there is a birthday, we will not go, or to eat ice cream we will go. But in foreign countries, bakery, they produce bread, and you know very well they consume bread heavily. We consume rice heavily, so that's a different. So what happens in their bakeries, there is a fight always. So why? Because breads are produced very less, so there will be too many crowds will be there. So even the bread is produced, if the bread is given to the other person, you know how the fight goes in our also marketplace. I asked you first, you give it to me. The person said, no, I came at 7 o'clock, early morning 7 o'clock I came, and I am standing here, why you are giving it to other person? So there is going to be a fight. So when the breads are produced, you must see who came first, that person must be given. Otherwise they will say, from morning we are standing here, what you are doing? You give it to us first, and this person came just now, you are giving bread to him. There is going to be a quarrel in the ice cream store or in any place, you know very well. So they have produced a technique. So what is that technique? You know very well. If you go to banks nowadays, to any bank, if you want to deposit a check, if you want to deposit withdraw money and other thing, you don't have to. When we were kids, we have to stand in queue. During that time ATM was also not there, we used to stand in queue. Now if you stand in queue, they will chase you out. They will say, go and get a token and come, and they will say, token number 1 please come. That's it. So issue a token, that's simple as that. So problem is solved. So this same idea is being used in the bakery algorithm, and it is meant for the distributed environment. However, it can be used for a single systems. Okay. So what happens is whenever a customer enters, so you know very well, if you go to bank nowadays and if you say I want to deposit, what they will say is get a token first. If you don't know, they will help you to get a token. So get the token first. So you enter first. When a process enters, it receives a token. And whoever has the lowest number in the token will be served. Sometime in the hospital also they do it. If you go to private hospital, whoever came first, dentist or something, you go there, they will also do the same. They will give you a token which is increasing number. Whoever came has the least token number is served first. Then next will come. Okay. Now the problem is we are talking about this giving this token numbers in computer. Now if two processes simultaneously comes to the operating system and say I want the token number. Remember, if two persons are coming to the bakery, then you can say he stepped in first, he stepped in next, and so on. You can do that. But in the processes, in the operating system, two are coming simultaneously at the same instant of the clock, both are there. Then what to do? If you give one number to the other, next number, others has to wait. So what the operating system will do, both of you came together, I will give you the same number. Token number 5 to you, token number 5 to you. Both of them will get the token. Then the question comes, who will be served? Now both of them have the same token number. Remember, in the bank such a thing will not happen because you are standing in queue. So you have to get the token. So you are always getting a higher token number, whereas in this case, in the operating system, two processes may come together. In that case, both of them will get the same token number. Now the question is, which one will be served? Now you know very well, if you are standing in a queue and if an old person comes, aged old person comes, whether you like it or not, most of you don't like that, but whether you like it or not, old person is given first choice. If you don't give, others will shout at you. So that's a common idea. So in operating system also does the same thing. What the operating system will do, it will check which processor started first. See, you know, operating system will keep count of which process has started, where is the state of the process. Yeah, I talked about PCB in the old videos. You might have noticed that. So operating system checks which has the process ID, which is the least ID. So when the first process starts, process ID is 1. Next process starts, process ID is 2. Next process starts, process ID. Which one has the least processor ID? Whoever has the least processor ID, that is allowed. In other words, all the processors are given a choice. In real life also same thing. You have the same token number, a older person has the same token number. Who will be served first? You know it. I don't have to tell you. So that's the same option here also. The old processor will be given. So that's it. If you have two processors Pi and Pj, both of them have the same number, then if I is less than j, that means the id or the number of process id of process I is less than j, Pi is served. Okay. So there is a order. Okay, so how does this particular bakery algorithm works? So before entering the critical section, every process has to receive a token number. So it will receive a number. Okay. Whoever has the smallest number will be allowed to enter into the critical section. Okay. If two processes receives the same ID, okay. So look at how the process IDs are generated. So you may have 1, 2, and simultaneously 4 have come. So all the 4 are given same ID. Okay. If you have 4 processors with the same ID, who is going to be served first? The one with the process ID less will be served first. Okay, so that's the idea. Now in this algorithm we use the symbol called as a less than. Is 5 less than 6? The answer is true, but here it is not 5 less than 6. We are taking ordered pair. So a comma b, one ordered pair, and c comma d. Is the a comma b ordered pair a comma b less than c comma d? How do I know that? If a is less than c, first item, first element, if a is less than c, this is true. If a is equal to c, then some problem is there. If A is greater than C, it is false. Remember, excuse me. You take the first item. Okay. So if let's say if A is 4, C is 5, then this is true. If A is 6, then it is false. Excuse me. Okay. So this is how it goes. So you have if A is equal to C, if A is 4, C is also 4, then you go for the next two elements. If B is less than D, then first element is 4. I will give you a few examples over here. Let's see here. 4 comma 2, 3 comma 2. Which one is less? 3 comma 2 is less because 3 is less than 4. Let me give you one other example. 5 comma 2, okay. 6 comma 2, which is less. 5 comma 2 is 5 is less. Okay. Let me give you one other example. 5 comma 2 and 5 comma 3, which is less. 5 and 5 are same, but 2 is less. So this is less. Last example over here. 5 comma 2, 5 comma 1. Which one is less? 5 and 5 are same, but 2 and 1 is less. So this is less. So here in this case, how do we do? First item, first element is the ticket number. Second one is the processor ID. There is one other value, so that is called as maximum. Remember, whenever a process comes, it is given a number. It must be in the increasing order. So when you enter the bakery or a bank or any other place, if you must get a number which is higher than already existing numbers. So if the last number is 99, you must get 100. If you get 50, you are luckiest one. Okay. So the number that you get is the last one. So maximum plus 1. So whoever has the highest number plus 1. There are two variables or two values are used shared. One is the choosing, the other one is the number. Okay. So choosing is a boolean value which says whether a number item is being chosen to you. So when you go to the bakery, they are going to give you a number, they are going to give you a token. So at that time what you are doing, they are choosing a token for you. Okay. So that is boolean. So they are choosing a token. So you go to the bakery, you go to bank, a token is chosen and given to you. So at that time choosing will be true. Once you get the token, there is no more choosing, you got the number. Okay. So number is, you know, that's a token number. Okay. Initially choosing is false because nobody is given a token initially, right? In the beginning nobody gets anything. So choosing is no, bakery is just opened, nothing is there. Choosing is everybody is, no number is being chosen. Everybody gets the same number, 0. It is an integer small value, 0, a default value for integer. Okay. How does the process will go? So when you enter, suppose you are entering, let's say you are the processor, you are entering. So first thing what you must get, a token has to be chosen. So they are choosing a token for you. Once a token is chosen, token choosing is completed, it is false. So initially as you enter, they are choosing, they are giving you one token. So choosing is true. Once you get the number, choosing is false. Which number you will get it? Check all the numbers. So check if there are many, already some people are there in the bakery, you check the number 5, 6, 8, 9, check all of them, get the maximum. So among them you ask them whose number is the highest. So somebody 45 is the last number. So add 1 to this. So your number will be 46. 45 people are already there. in the queue, you go, your number will be 46, maximum number. Okay, it may be, it is not that 45 people are there that they are getting, so it is not a count. One process comes, the count is one, like that. Number could be anything. Okay, whichever is the last number, add 1 to it, that will be the maximum. Okay, so choosing is completed. So next thing what you must do, next, can you get, okay, so a token is given to you, so you got the token, can you go and get the bread now? The answer is no, you can't get. You have to check your token number. So your token number is 45 or 46, so you wait up to 46 token number to come. So you wait until all of them are going. Okay, so you wait. So it is your turn or somebody else's turn, you don't know, you have to wait. So how long? Remember what you do, once you get the token, you ask your neighbors who are standing, okay, hey, what is your number, what is your number? If one person is says, no, they are giving me number, in that case what you will do? Wait, okay, let them give the number, I will ask you later. So as you are going, if you find that they are giving a number to the jth, you are ith, remember they are j, so if they are choosing a number for somebody else, then you can't proceed. You can't say mine is the least, theirs is the highest. You don't know, because one person is not given a token. If everybody is given a token, then you know that your token is the least. You cannot say that. So remember, you can't say that my token number is the least one. Why? Because they are giving a token to one person. You have to even count that. Once that person comes and says this is my token, then only you say my number is less, that is why I will go. So if you find that any process is waiting or for the token, then you wait until the token is issued to them. So if the choosing is there for any process, remember there are n processes are there, you look at here, there are n processes are there, we are writing for n processor. For all the n processor, you go to one first process, ask what is your token number. You go to the second process, ask what is your token number. You go to the third process, ask what is the token number. You go to the fourth process, they are choosing a token. You wait until the fourth process get the number. Once the process gets the number, choosing will be false for that also. Then you check. What you are going to check? Whether the number is 0. So what is the meaning of saying whether the process ID is 0? Okay, and whether your number is less than the other's number. Okay, so two things you must do. Who will enter? Okay, if your number is 0, what is the meaning of saying your number is 0? Your number is the initial value. So what is the initial value? Initially nobody is given, look at here what I said, initially nobody is given a value. So if you are not given a value, forget it. What is the meaning of you go to the 20th processor and say what is your token number? My token number is 0. What does that mean? No token is issued. Forget it. They are not there in the race. You want to get the bread, you come out of the bakery and you ask the person who is standing there, hey, what is your token number? He will say, who is interested in bread? I came for a puff. So that's it. Okay, so that process is not interested in the bread. Those who were interested in the bread, they were fighting. The person was interested in the puff. So he said, I am not interested in the bread. You take bread, eat or die. That is your problem. I am not going to come with you. So I am not there in the race, in other words. So if you find that somebody has a number 0, forget them. Somebody says my token number is not 0, anything 1 2 3 4, then you have to check. Oh, if person comes and says my token number is 1, oh, your number is 46, then you will have to wait. You will have to wait until when? Until your turn will come. So until where? Until your turn will come, until you are less than the other. So if you do that, you come to the critical section. Once you have completed your critical section, what will happen? You take the token, you get the bread. What they will do? Immediately they will tear the token. Otherwise you will come back with the same token. Yes or no? So what is the meaning of saying they will tear the token? They will reinitialize it to 0. Okay. 0 means you don't have the token. So that's it. And then you go to the remainder section. Okay. So this particular algorithm serves mutual exclusion. So even though n numbers are there, only one is allowed to enter into the critical section. Okay. If the process PI wants to enter into the critical section and the PK wants to also want to enter into the critical section, so what it will do? It will check whether the ith value is less than kth value. You know very well. Okay, whether the token number. First of all, you must check whether the token number is not equal to 0, and then check who has the least token number. If both of you have the same token number, go and check the processor ID. Whichever has the least processor ID will do the enter into the critical section. So that's all in this session. Thank you for your interest. We will meet again in the next class. Thank you.